Well, greetings, friends. Hope you're well today. Hey, are you thinking about selling your home? I know the process can maybe seem overwhelming to you, but when you break it down into simple steps, it's actually very manageable. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire home selling process from start to finish. I'm John Rurkowski, and I've been helping buyers and sellers transition to the next chapter in their life since 2001. And I've got some notes with me because I wrote these steps down and I wanted to make sure that I don't miss any of them because each one is extremely vital. So the first point I'd like to make is, why are you selling? Do you have a plan B? What if we put it on the market, we price it properly, we get it decluttered, we make those minor repairs that I suggest you making. We have the 4-point inspection done ahead of time. Those repairs are done. And we put it on the market and then bam, you get a very good offer the buyer who wants to close in 30 days. Are you ready to make that move? So you need to take that into consideration. Okay. Could it happen? Absolutely. Does it happen? Yes. Chances are we price it right. It's going to get looks. It's going to get showings, and it's going to get a good offer. So that's the first question I want to ask you is, why are you selling? And what's the timeline and goals? We can always build into that offer, or a counter offer, I should say, because let's say the buyer sends in a good offer and you want to close at a later date, or possibly you need to sell to buy. Well, we could always do a post-occupancy addendum, meaning we close on the property and stay in the home for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it may take. So that you must give some consideration to. So why are you selling? Your timeline and goals. Are you buying another home? Have you started that search yet? That all comes into play. And my first point about why are you selling? Okay. Downsizing, something in the family happened, a birth, a death, etc. Let's have a conversation about that so we set you up for success. Once we know your goals, we can start preparing your home for sale. So that's always going to be the first question I ask is, what's the plan? Why are you selling? Number 2, preparing your home for sale. Declutter and depersonalize, minor repairs, cleanliness matters, curb appeal, and professional photography. So our initial seller consultation, I'm meeting with you, I'm asking you these questions. These are the things I'm going to suggest you do. I would highly suggest we do a 4-point inspection. That is done by a professional inspector. They come in and check out the air conditioning, the roof, the plumbing, and the electrical. Those 4 points. And the reason that's important is we want to make sure any buyer that comes in, we are going to present them a clean 4-point inspection so they know that there will be no issues getting insurance on this property. Sure, they can do another one if they want, but I think, to be honest, it might be a waste of their $75 or $100 for that report. So let's get a 4-point inspection conducted, and if you want, and I think it's a good idea, let's get a full-blown home inspection. And any of the little details that need to be things that are going to come up on a future inspection, they're going to be taken care of prior to. And if you were a buyer, you're walking into a property saying, here's a clean 4-point, here's the home inspection. By the way, any of the gigs that were in that inspection report, the seller has taken care of already. Doesn't that give the buyer a sense of assurance that, wow, I'm walking into a property in which the seller has maintained the property well, and those minor little repairs that they may not have known about, or things have changed, such as GFCIs in the kitchen, those things were taken care of already. One less thing for you to worry about when it comes to home inspections and getting the property that you want in the proper condition. Now that your home is ready to put on the market, we're going to talk about pricing. So the first point was thinking about selling. Why are you selling? What's the plan? Number 2 is preparing the property to get on the market. Number 3 is pricing. Pricing's a little more complicated than I think people think because every home is unique. From an appraisal standpoint, which is what we need to consider, be concerned about, because when a buyer who's getting a loan, they must have the property appraised. So what's the appraiser looking at? They're looking at homes within the same subdivision, similar homes that have sold within the last, let's say, 6 months. If your home is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with a pool, about 1,800 square feet, they're going to be looking for sold comparables that are similar to yours. Yes, there's a little bit of give and take when it comes to the square footage, but they want to find properties of like kind. 2-car garages with pool, 3 to 1,800 square feet within your subdivision or neighborhood. They want to get as close to that subject property as possible to, properly assess the value of the property for the lender who is giving the buyer the loan on that property. So what goes into assessing the value of the property? Yes, we're going to look at price per square foot. We're going to look at upgrades. Is the roof, air conditioning, electrical panel, and hot water tank, are they newer or are they original? If they're newer, that adds to our average price per square foot. If they're older, it's going to take away from the price per square foot. What's the overall feel of the home? What's the market doing? What's the curb appeal? All those things are going to factor into how you price a property. Is there any current competition out there? Are there any homes in your neighborhood? That makes a huge difference, right? If there are 7 homes on your street for sale, and we price yours, at the highest price per square foot, what are the chances of it getting looks? And we're getting no looks, we're getting no offers, and no offers turn into no transactions or closings. So we want to price the property properly and actually ahead of the curve. So what we need to do is do a full analysis of the property. Let's see, are the windows updated? All those things that are going to be important to the buyer. Put yourself in the buyer's shoes. If you're walking into your neighborhood today, what is that buyer looking for? Okay. Most buyers in this market, if they're paying top dollar for a property, they want that home to be almost perfect. Okay. We may have to suggest that you paint some walls to make it more neutral. We're going to certainly ask you to declutter. Make it as minimal as possible. And get rid of everything. Okay. Make sure they can see that gorgeous countertop. You put things in a closet, put things in the garage. The homes that I see where people have done this and the garage is full of boxes, that's not a big deal because people realize people are moving and they need to start packing and put those things away. Price versus value is key to a buyer as well. It's one thing to price the property, but how much value is that buyer getting for that property in your subdivision? That's always going to be key. So, in the importance of proper pricing, we don't want the property sitting on the market for months. We want to price it properly. We want to get it in the best condition possible to get the best photos because that's what is going to get somebody in the house. Not only are you looking within a subdivision, for example, or they're looking for that 3 to 1,800 square foot with a pool within a county. Maybe they don't care so much about the subdivision, but those are the key things that they want. The next thing that is vitally important is professional photography. That is what is going to get somebody into a home. I know for myself, it's what got me into the house that I bought. Okay. Yes, it matched everything else, but there was 20 or 30 other properties that had the same criteria. But why did I come into mine? The photos drew me in, and that's why I'm going to hire a professional photographer to photo your home. And should it warrant, we'll do drone photography as well. Not all homes warrant drone photography, depending on the location. Okay. It certainly isn't a bad idea, and it also gives the condition of the neighborhood, or you can see the surrounding areas. So that's always an option that we can discuss when we meet. So let's market your home. We've done the steps. We've met. We figured out why you're moving. We gave you the suggestions on what to do: declutter, curb appeal, minor repairs, 4-point inspection. We came up with a pricing strategy, and now we're going on the market. By far, the most sought out place to have any property is on the MLS. And why is that? It's because The MLS is where all of the other websites get their feed from. Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com, you name it. It all comes from the feed through MLS. Proper information, correct information on the MLS, along with great photos, and uploaded into the MLS attachments, okay, such as a floor plan, which we can do through the photographer, the clean 4-point inspection, a seller's prop disclosure, any addendum that is necessary for the buyer to make an educated, offer on your property is what we're going to do and add that into MLS. I mentioned professional photography, social media. I have an account with Homes.com. So Homes.com will automatically send you flyers and brochures for the home when we list it. And Homes.com, along with Realtor.com and Zillow, are the top 3, as you know, where people are looking to buy homes. The beauty of Homes.com is, other than Zillow is a little bit different. If somebody clicks on Zillow, unless you're a premier agent or paying a lot of money to be an agent on Zillow, you're not getting that lead back. If somebody's going on Homes.com, that lead is coming directly to me, the best educated agent on your property. And is there anybody better to sell your property than me? No, because I know the intricacies of the property, the motivation you have to sell. And I can share with the buyer, with your permission, why you're selling, what you're looking for, the specifics to make a very valid offer that you're going to accept. I love doing open houses. Open houses may not sell your property, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Photos say one thing, they tell one story, but open houses get people in the house. Okay. And just like a video, you can see my body language, my tone, etc. You're learning a lot more by seeing this video than you would be on a still shot, my headshot, for example, right? So the photos in MLS are kind of the headshot, and the open house is kind of the virtual tour or the in-person, interview with your home. And we want to open as many doors as possible for as many buyers as possible. I believe in them. They do work, and I'll be glad to do more, as many as I possibly can with your permission. Agent networking is the last way we are going to market the property, by different pitch groups, by different Facebook groups that we're all part of. We share the value of this new listing we have. We're excited to share this opportunity. And every agent who has a buyer looking for your particular property is going to be notified immediately that it just hit the market. So next step would be showings and open houses. When somebody wants to see the property, they must go through the proper channels, and I use showing time. What that means is I get alerted that somebody wants to see the property. I will call them. I will give them the information about the property. I will follow up with them and get feedback to share with you on what that buyer or agent thought. It's always encouraging to hear a third party's, interpretation of the property. We're going to ask them, what did they think of the overall property? How about pricing? Any suggestions, etc. That feedback I will always share with you. And speaking of feedback, I also ask for those who attend open houses to share that with me as well. I want to share that with you. I want to be honest with you and share with you what other people are saying about your property. And may I suggest, always keep your home show ready. Okay. I'm guessing, your home is always up to date, well kept, etc. Well, now more than ever, it always must be that way. We'll always ask for a 2-hour window minimum for showings. And there's certainly during a certain hours that we can dictate once we have that conversation on what works for you. Maybe you're working from home. Maybe we have to figure out a schedule for the showings. So that's all things we can talk about when I first meet with you. But I need to just stress, keep the house always in great condition. Simple little things that you wouldn't think sellers would consider: trash out, sink clean of dishes, beds made, toilet seats down. It's just little things. Okay. Put yourself in the shoes of that buyer when they walk in. Okay. First impressions matter. They really do. If you're a smoker in the house, you may not realize how that affects others who are non-smoking. So if possible, if you have a place to smoke outdoors, for example, I would suggest you start doing that. Okay? A smoker's not going to care, but a majority of the people, the buyers, are not smokers. So therefore, keep that in mind. Okay? Patience is a virtue. Sometimes this happens overnight, sometimes it doesn't. In a truly balanced market, 6 months of inventory is normal. A few years ago, we were spoiled when homes were on the market for a couple of hours and there was a line around the block to get into the open houses. Well, things have changed. Okay. Inventory is up. Interest rates are double what they used to be. So this is more of a normal market. We kind of got spoiled by that 3% interest rate and properties selling for over ask without any inspections, etc. Those days are over. That's why it's so best to, properly price the property. Okay. Always have it show ready. Let's market it properly and let's get it on and off the market as quickly as possible. Because even though there may not be anything wrong with the property, when somebody sees a property that's been on the market for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, their first thought is, what's wrong with the property? There may be nothing wrong with the property. It may have been priced a little bit too high. They may have gone on and off contract for different reasons and buyer just changed their mind. That happens often. And I have a strategy to overcome that as well. And we'll chat about that as well. So once that all happens, let's say we have a great offer on the table. The buyer's agent, if it's not me bringing you the buyer, another agent will send us an offer. I'll meet with you, whether in person or over the phone or via Zoom, and just say, here's the offer. Here's the pluses. Here's the minus. Here's the pre-qualification letter from the buyer's agent. Here's the proof of funds because they're paying cash. And basically how I explain it, it's almost like a tennis match. They've lobbed the ball over onto our side of the court. Now it's our opportunity to either lob it back with a counteroffer or lob it back saying we've accepted the offer. Once that happens, it becomes an effective contract. We initial and sign where needed, and then we have an effective contract. That contract will stipulate the purchase price, the deposit, the type of financing, what type of contract it is, the inspection time frame, and the closing date. So everything you're going to need to know about the bottom line on your contract, I can get from that contract and do you a net sheet for you, meaning here's what approximately you're going to walk away from. It's very close, but there are some things that change. Taxes are prorated. Condo and maintenance fees and HOA fees monthly are prorated, etc. So those things may fluctuate depending on the closing date, but we'll be pretty close. The most important thing that I want to stress too may not be purchase price to you. It might be time frame. What if this buyer is allowing you to stay in for 3 months because you want to find a place after you close? Or let's say what you care about is net, or you prefer cash versus financing. Those are all things we can discuss, not only at our initial consultation, but when we get offered. Once we accept an offer, we move into inspections and contingencies. Normally, 10 days to 15 days is what's fairly normal for an inspection time frame. And depending on which contract the buyer submits, I have a suggestion on which one we should use, by the way, that keeps the buyer's feet to the fire a little bit more. Their buyers will do their inspections. Anything insurance, they're going to get to us an addendum if there's anything that they're going to request to be repaired. Anything insurance related realistically must be addressed and fixed. Unless they're a cash buyer and don't care about those items, then we're going to have an addendum going back and forth, and the buyer's going to ask us for X, Y, and Z to be repaired. We're going to sign that addendum, making it part of the contract, and those repairs must be done by a licensed professional prior to closing. We'll ask for receipts and photos from that electrician, plumber, whatever it might be. And that's why, again, it's so important they have a clean 4-point. If we have a clean 4-point, we're not going to have to deal with this. So that's why, again, I brought that up earlier. I highly suggest on every listing, clean 4-point, get a home inspection done, and a minimum of 4-point inspection. Get a full-blown home inspection too, so you can create, any or fix any things that come up, during that inspection report. During the offer as well, we're negotiating. Maybe part of the repairs aren't really required. We might say, yes, we'll do this and that, but we're not doing that one. Okay, it's all part of the negotiating, going back and forth. If there are any repairs, we'll take care of it, or a credit depending on the situation. The buyer, if they're getting a loan, will have an appraisal ordered by an independent appraisal company. The lender no longer can dictate or demand who does the appraisal. Because of all the mortgage fraud years ago, we want to make sure that the appraiser is a third-party, unbiased vendor who's got no allegiance to the buyer, the seller, or the lender. That's key. Because, and you know what, when we price it right, appraisal will never be an issue anyways, but just sharing. Once the loan is approved, within 30 days, we should be able to close within, 4 weeks or so, maybe quicker, depending, but that's a pretty good time frame. There's no reason that a home cannot close within 30 days. I have lenders that can do it in 21 days, okay? Cash transactions can close much, much quicker. A lot of times, some of the holdups, depending if it's a condo or a home in an HOA, the title company who's doing the closing is waiting for the HOA or condo to get them back, the proper documentation to approve the buyer and giving title instructions on how to proceed with closing. So after all that's done, closing day is around the corner. I will give you a list of things to do, such as, get with the utilities and have your utilities shut off on the closing date. Make sure all the keys, fobs, garage door openers, etc., are returned to the home. If you have cable or internet equipment, return that to your provider. And I'll give you some other things to do as well, but that's the key. Okay. All of your personal belongings are out of the property unless we're selling it furnished, but we want to have that buyer walk in when they do the walkthrough and go, wow, here's my new home. How exciting, and you are transitioning to your next chapter as they are into your new home. So the buyers and sellers sign, you'll be alerted by the title company on where and when to sign the closing documents. You'll be given a statement prior to, so you and I can review it to make sure everything is correct. The purchase price, the deposit, the cost all makes sense. The prorations are done properly, and your bottom line net with, should be very close to what I estimated you'll walk away from. So then the buyer signs their documents. The buyer's money is then, the mortgage is wired to the title company. The buyer's lender approves the final documents and releases that wire. From there, that wire, your net proceeds are wired into your account. That's it. All that's left is to celebrate a great closing and a new chapter in your life. I take such fulfillment in helping buyers and sellers in this process. And that's a fairly simplified version of what occurs. There's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that I take care of. I'm going to share with you what you need to know. And unless you want to know everything every day, what's going on, I really don't think it's necessary, but I'll be glad to do that with you. So that's a snapshot of what happens in the selling process. I'm John Rurkowski. I help families transition to the next chapter in their life. I'd love to help you. If you have any questions about the process of selling your home, reach out to me. I'm always available. I'm an early bird, so don't be afraid to message me early in the morning. I'll be glad to get back to you, at that moment or when convenient for both of us. I can be reached at 727-459-7356 and make it a great day. And thank you for listening. Peace.